Hello and welcome everybody for the Blood God, aka Ryan here. um, if you have no idea what you're looking at right now, this is an app called Roll20, or a website called Roll20. Basically, what it allows you to do is it allows you to find D&D and other role-playing game groups over the internet for weekly sessions or bi-weekly sessions. Really, whatever you guys want for you. Recently, I watched I guess quick shout outs here. And the High Rollers group on the Yogscast, as well as Matt Mercer and his group of professional voice actors. Um, I realized that I needed to get back into D&D, and that I played it a little bit when I was younger, and I missed it, and I wanted to try giving it a go. And those two in particular, Mark and Matt Mercer, they inspired me to want to actually try DMing as opposed to being a player. So, what this video series is going to be is me kind of explaining my thought process on my first time DMing and kind of how I'm putting stuff together and how I'm organizing things and a little bit of background for everybody. My first two campaigns that I'm going to run are going to be in slightly altered versions of Faerun. And the reason for that is Faerun and the Forgotten Realms is something I'm very familiar with. I've read a lot of books. It's a world that I'm really familiar with and I love, and I've wanted to explore it myself. So as I work on my own world and kind of build my own thing in my spare time, I'm going to run campaigns in this as it's something that I'm comfortable with and I can work with. And that's something that I recommend to anybody that's looking to DM for the first time. Choose something that you're familiar with and that you're passionate about. I love fantasy settings. I love the giant magical and deity fueled wars that were in Forgotten Realms, and it was something that I really wanted to have fun capturing. The campaign itself, as you can see up here, is called Whispers of Destruction. It's so I've got a main overarching story that has kind of three central plot points to it, but I've also left the middle areas very open so that my party can tell me what they want to explore and so that they can find things that really interest them as characters. And one thing I did to kind of emulate that is each of my characters has a character specific quest line. They all have a reason that they're going to the capital of Talismasia. They all have something that's waiting for them there, and as soon as they finish that, it's going to branch out and open up kind of a bigger story for them to fulfill. So those character quests will really kind of help fill in the time between the major plot points, as well as give the characters time to develop. It gives the other characters a chance to really learn who your character is as they watch them go through very personal experiences, things like that. So that was one thing I'm excited about. Real quick, I'll go ahead and tell you guys the party that I got. We have Christopher Armsby, as you can see here. He's a human that was born into a noble family. At a fairly young age, like when he just started reaching young adulthood, he decided that he wanted to join his uncle, who is a mercenary that works out of Waterdeep. Now, I haven't added it to the map yet, but Waterdeep's going to be somewhere along this coast here. So his mercenary group, they go around and they're a good group. They're not the mercenaries that are taking just any job. He's a very honorable man, and his uncle definitely has kind of his own set of ethics, if you will. So, really interesting guy. He had a really cool backstory, lots of fun stuff. And as his character quest, he's on his way to Talismasia because he received a letter claiming that his uncle has disappeared. The letter says to ask for Konahugahu Uvayo at the tavern, the Battle Brew Inn. So that's his reason for heading to the capital, and once he gets there, there's going to be a wonderful surprise waiting for him. I'm not going to detail that quite yet, just on the off chance that any of my players finds this video. However, as that gets discovered, that will be covered in a future video. So If this is something that interests you, feel free to stick around, like, subscribe. I plan on doing these as the sessions are done. Our second character is Geltz. She is a gravedigger. She worked with her father for many, many years, and then she decided that she needed to go out and explore and kind of expand her knowledge of the world and kind of her trade, if you will. Currently, she is on her way to Talismasi because a passing adventurer, I've got his name right here, Henrik Valdez. He's a human wanderer. He was very much kind of one of those guys that had a lot of tales to tell. He was constantly talking about something that he's done and accomplished. So he ended up telling her about an ancient shrine that's hidden in the center of Talismasia. And the way that that works, Talismasia, the capital, is actually built around the ruins of the previous capital of Faerun. And so what happened was, hundreds of years ago, when this great cataclysm rocked the plains, the original capital was destroyed, and then they built up around that. And there's a wall kind of separating the old capital from the new capital. And the interesting thing is, a lot of the old capital was actually located underground in this giant network of tunnels that had been carved out for them by the dwarves. So, the above section of the old capital isn't as large as you would imagine. But there's obviously that means that there's a whole lot of stuff down underneath that hasn't been explored and likely is full of good, interesting things. So as far as she knows, this ancient tomb that she wants to explore is located in the old capital. There's a skull emblazoned door that she's supposed to find, and there's a word that she needs to speak to open it. Lorne of Clan Proudwing. So pretty much the Dragonborn in this setting are not necessarily hated, but they're very mistrusted. And because of the fact that a lot of regular dragons were active during the Great Cataclysm that happened, there's kind of a concern that the Dragonborn also helped and had something to do with it. And it was a very devastating event that caused a lot of damage and even put ancient gods to slumber. So, I haven't put it up here, but it's going to be up here in this mountain range up here is where his hometown is going to be located. And pretty much at a young age, his family and village was slaughtered by a bunch of humans and dwarves that just thought that they were plotting against them. It was very much just a racial fear that led to a very horrible, horrible circumstance. After that, Lorne traveled to a monastery and became a worshipper of Kelemvor, who is the god of death. Now, for this campaign, I've already discussed it with him. We are going to be using the early version of Kelemvor. He ended up shifting after this horrible event that befell him. We are using the early version of him due to A, the fact that I felt it had a little bit more personality to it, and B, its relation with Mysteria, the goddess of mysteries, was very important for our group in particular. So he started learning, he trained, he became a paladin, he's been working for this order, and then while he was off on business, his monastery was attacked and the crypts were raided by necromancers. So, once again, his home and all these people that he cared about were once again murdered and killed, and he's just left with this burning hatred for necromancy. Now, he is on his way to Talismasia to A, report into kind of the central hub of the church, and B, he's heard rumors that they might need help. Next brings us Tiberius Felborn. Interestingly enough, he is actually a necromancer. And in a minute, I'll explain how that ended up kind of affecting our first session for a very, very funny moment. But, kind of his backstory, so he was a very well-known and very positive politician. Like, he had a lot of great influence, he did a lot of good. So much so that he caught the attention of some very undesirable people. And what it led to was a group of mercenaries was hired to rape and murder his wife in front of his eyes and also killed his daughter before slitting his throat. So he was forced to watch these horrible, horrible atrocities, and then his throat was cut. Wow. Now, he is a follower of Mysteria, but in that moment of desperation and pure hatred, he ended up making a pact with somebody else. He does not know who that is yet, and I'm not going to ruin it until after it. It'll have to be after the Talismasia events. I'll be able to fill you guys in the rest of the way on that. But he's made a dark pact with somebody else, and so he is actually at the moment a revenant, which means that he's very human-like in appearance, but his eyes have this ridiculous burning hatred in them, and at all times he just feels compelled towards the next target. And the first target for a revenant is the one that actually killed you, if there are multiple targets. So the man that slit his throat is somewhere in Talismasia, and he has to go deal with that. Next we have Shanna. She is a gnome artificer, and she's very well known for her work. She's been a part of the Central Trade Guild for a while, and she's respected, and she's a kind of a regular member right now. She pays her dues. She does everything that's requested of her, but currently she's on her way to the capital because A, there is rumor that they need her area of expertise in dealing with a magical item, and B, there's rumors that she might be up for a promotion. And the last but not least is our drow. Our drow actually did not make it to the first session. I'm still waiting to hear back from her on if she will be returning, but for the moment, she is not currently a part of the party. Now, one thing, guys, this program is amazing. You have kind of your chat, which lets you make your rolls. As you can see, I have macros down here for things like bites and things like that. You can get tokens. You can see I have this amazingly filled out journal here. I've got members of the Harpers. I've got villagers. I've got hospital temple people, tavern, shopkeepers, and even this you can see is broken down into separate categories. I got the smithies, general goods, some extra miscellaneous ones that I haven't decided which town they're going to be in yet, other big characters. So if you are going to DM and if you're going to play on Roll20, I really recommend taking just a little bit of time to fill out some kind of basic locations that you know that they're likely to probably end up at some point or another. Another thing too that I've kind of decided that I was going to do, I'm the kind of guy that I really like to give life to characters, and I like to have kind of, those big background characters that people enjoy seeing, but they aren't kind of necessarily affecting the area that your group's at a whole lot. And so one thing that I've decided to do is when I first decided I was going to get back into D&D, I spent like 3 days just making a bunch of player characters that I would love to play if I was a player. Now, as I've decided to be a DM instead of a player, one really cool thing that allows me to do is I can take these player characters that I designed that have really well fleshed out backstories and personalities that I know really well because I was planning on playing them, and I can use them in this story. One example of this is Tarek Lorathan of the Crimson Voice. That is a bard that I actually designed for myself to play, but I realized that he is the perfect candidate for the first person of the Harpers for them to meet. So, things like that, guys. If you are really passionate about a certain character that you've designed or a certain location, find a way to work that in. Find a way to use that. I certainly have, and from the way that our first session went, it seems that everybody was very pleased and very happy with the way things worked out. So, this was the map. They've left Long Barrow. All of them have joined a caravan led by Frederick Valance, and they were on their way towards Talismasia. As you can see, there's two kind of cities in the way, and this was where they had made camp. Before the first session officially started with everybody waking up at camp, I pulled each person into a private section of the Discord chat, and I gave each of them a dream. And each of their dreams was kind of personal. Most of it was kind of character specific stuff. The only thing that was really out of the ordinary that you guys would probably be interested in is that Lorne actually had a dream about Tiberius, kind of giving him this strange sense that he's not a threat. And and obviously there's a reason for that. It's the fact that their deities are actually very closely related. But in our first session, that kind of got ignored at one point. It led to a very funny moment. But to give you guys an idea, so they all woke up at camp, and as they woke up, there were cries from the guards saying that there was a thief, and that something like thief, robber, things like that, and they had started to run up the road a little bit. So each of them checked their packs and found that they were missing something. Something had been stolen. And for each of them, it was something that wasn't, like for instance, I didn't take an arcane focus from a wizard because that prevents him from casting his spells. That takes away the uniqueness of his character. And there are going to be instances where that might be okay, but I didn't want to do that as the hook to get them into the story, because then this whole first mission they would have been without the thing that makes them cool. But what I definitely did do is I went for things that were personal to them and that they very much cared about. So like Lorne, I took his holy symbol since he's not channeling any divinity yet. I took Christopher's family signet ring. I took the High Elf Revenant's gold, since he had a lot of starting gold being a noble, like an aristocrat, so I just took half of that. Basically, yeah, so for each of them, I took something that they very much value, but wasn't going to stop them from performing, kind of a thing. So they come up and they talk to Frederick, and he tells them that that they were chasing a halfling kind of up the road, and he disappeared into the trees here. Immediately, the party was kind of like, well, I need my stuff back, so we definitely gotta go find this guy. And Frederick, being a very honorable man, and since, I mean, they paid to be a part of this caravan partially for the protection that it offered, and the convenience of it, really. And so the fact that they were robbed under his watch was very much upsetting to him. So not only did he offer to refund their caravan costs, he also offered to give them a little bit of bonus gold on top of that, as well as he gave them each a healing, like a minor healing potion, just in case they did run into trouble. Party traveled up the road. They found a bunch of really old looking graves with inscriptions to Mysteria, which looked very out of place. And then the Shanna actually started doing a little bit of tracking and noticed that there were some footprints that kind of led into the bushes here. Behind these big bushes and trees, they ended up finding a decently sized cave mouth. Inside, that brought them over to here, and they found a campfire that looks like it had been used probably the night before, but it was definitely out for a while. They also found a bedroll, as well as a big pile of what looks like kind of junk. At the back of the cave, however, there was a door that was slightly creaked open. Lorne, immediately just kind of assuming that that's where the guy must have gone, he rushed over the door and yanked it open. As he did so, this loud kind of rusty creaking started echoing down the staircase over here. And in this room was one lizard man, two troglodytes waiting for them. And because of the loud noise that he made, it ended up alerting them, and they were ready and waiting. So Lord comes down the stairs, and ironically enough, the lizard folk happens to speak a very, very guttural dialect of Draconic, so they're actually able to understand each other. The lizard folk asks what their business is. Lauren says that there's a halfling that they are after that has stolen their stuff, and the lizard folk says the halfling is ours, leave if you want to live. Lauren exclaims that he was thinking the same thing and immediately charges forward. Battle ensues. The party did really well, brought them down. And that was one thing, guys, because one of our people didn't show up and because I was still new to this, I scaled back the first fight a little bit. So creatures that would have had 2 or 3 attacks, I gave them 1 attack. And the lizard man, he was definitely beefy and he was harder for them to hit and he had more health, but at the same time he was still only taking the 1 attack as opposed to doing the shield bash every time. They dealt with the fight fairly easily. The constitution staves against the trogs went pretty well. I think only one person took some poison damage. There's maybe one claw hit that actually made it through. Lauren has a pretty high armor class and he's doing some tank and spanking, so that's gonna force me to kind of think creatively on future future encounters to kind of help make sure that, and you'll end up seeing I adjusted stuff as they walked through based on how they were doing. So because of how well they did against the 2 trogs and the lizard man here, they saw some of the stolen coins that spilled out outside this door. All of these doors were closed. So they decided to go through this one first since it seemed like that was the way the halfling had probably gone. They come down here, there's a staircase, and as they started to get halfway down the staircase, they saw another troglodyte here, and what they didn't know was there was one here and there was one over here. They just saw this one dancing around on the table making these very guttural sounds. So Lorne and Christopher, spear guarding it, kind of tried to stealth it up, but Christopher's armor ended up clinking on some rock, and it alerted these 3, and the fight kind of broke out right here at the end of the hallway. Party reacted really well. I gave these trogs all of their attacks because I realized that they were having trouble hitting and that they weren't getting very many attacks due to the damage output the party was doing. But it helped kind of keep it a little bit more challenging given that it was 3 very squishy creatures. So after kind of searching this room for goods, they found, and that was one thing, when I had originally kind of put some of these gold values and things down in my my DM layer, I had forgot that I had 6 players, or 5 players is what it ended up being. So I kind of scaled up some of the gold and things like that, especially since they don't have a dedicated healer at the moment. I wanted to make sure that I gave them a little bit extra gold since they're going to be spending a decent amount on probably potions. But they ended up coming into this room. They found the body of a human, a dwarf, and an elf. Immediately, Tiberius, being a necromancer, goes, all right, I'm going to, and this is one thing, because he is a necromancer and we didn't want to wait for him to hit like level 3 to start getting necromancy spells, or level 4, what we went ahead and did was there's a homebrew book called a 100 first level spells or something like that he brought to me. It balances out spells. It makes them seem like more fitting for level 1, especially this anime dead one. So I went ahead and I allowed him to use it. He animated the dwarf, and as soon as the dwarf started to stand up, the paladin sprang into action to cleave it in half. Tiberius yelled, "No, it's mine, don't do it." And as soon as he heard that, the paladin spins around and punches Tiberius in the face with the pommel of his sword. Very funny, kind of unfortunate series of events, but at that moment they kind of had a tense moment. There was kind of a little bit of a squabble amongst the party, but at the same time, Lorne got this feeling from Kellamvor that these 2 are supposed to work together and that their gods are very much friendly with each other and they don't want conflict between their orders. So Lorne kind of begrudgingly backed down, even though he's still very much not happy about it. But he also kind of accepted what his deity was telling him. As they were having this squabble, Geltz was listening at this door and overheard some strange muttering going on the other side of the door. She tells everybody what's going on. They end up busting in here. There was 2 lizard men with a halfling, Rourke Thistleton, tied up in the center of an altar. There was a very, very crudely, poorly painted magical circle. It looks like these lizard men know like the basics of some ritual, but you kind of get the impression that neither of them was actually like a shaman trained to do this kind of thing. It seems like they almost are a small portion of a bigger faction. Um, so the party started spilling into the room. As each of them did, I had them make perception checks because due to the fact that Lorne was tanking spanking everything so well up to this point, I had a troglodytes actually against like stone and rock work. They get a little bit of a bonus to their stealth checks. So I went ahead and hid a trog here in the corner. So the tanks spilled in, started attacking the lizard men, and then I piled the trog into the ranged units at the back, forcing all them to make a constitution save since all of the tanks were already immune. Give it a little bit more excitement again, kind of give them a little bit of a surprisement, like, oh no, like, I wasn't ready for that. So they did very well. They dealt with this. They found a couple of emeralds around a temple to a giant snake-looking god. That none of them recognize it, but they definitely recognize that it's one of the ancient gods that has probably been asleep for a while. They found a couple of emeralds, and then Shanna specifically figured out that one of the emeralds was magical, and she identified it to be a life eater gem. She might have to do a little bit of research to completely remember how they work, but she does know that that is the type of gem that it is. And pretty much how that's going to work, guys, is anytime a creature of above beast kind of monster intelligence is slain, but the gem has to be held in the offhand while the creature is slain, is kind of the trigger to it working. So they're going to have to figure out who they want to do that or deal with that, but she did manage to find one of those and identify it. She did not tell the rest of the party what it was as of yet. So currently, she's kind of stowing away that gem for herself. Next, they decided to go through door number 2. At this point, once they had saved Rourke, he immediately apologized. He gave them back their items, and he explained that the only reason he was stealing is because he's had trouble finding work, and his wife and his daughter deserve better than they've been getting. And there was very much a sense of kind of sadness and kind of shame in the fact that he's resorted to this, but it's kind of the only skill set that he had from before his family life, so when he had trouble finding work, it's just kind of his brain defaulted to it. So he apologized, and he even made a suggestion that he's probably going to try to join up with the Harpers. So we still need to see how that's going to play out. Another cool thing to note is that Christopher and Lorne both donated 5 gold to Rourke as soon as they found out about his family and about the fact that, like, he isn't generally like this. But they also told him that if they ever did see him practicing kind of that line of work again, they were going to be very unhappy with him, which he readily agreed. So they asked Rourke to accompany them through the tunnel. They made a pretty hefty persuasion check. He said that he wasn't going to frontline any combat, but he would help them kind of keep an eye out for things. So as they came through the second door, they had him take point. One thing that he didn't necessarily say anything, but he very purposefully stepped over this first rug, because one thing that was just kind of instinct to him is he noticed that with this giant rug here, the smaller one kind of blocking the doorway seemed very out of place. The rest of the party, being very observant, noticed that he kind of purposely stepped over this, and they all started kind of trying to mess around with the rug and figure out what was going on with it. 3 heroes in a row rolled 8s on their strength checks to try to pry the rug up off the floor, and with it being a DC check of 10, all 3 of them saw the rug kind of snap back to the floor as soon as they tried. Underneath the floor, though, they did, however, see that there seemed to be some kind of short, shallow, empty pit. Lorne, finally getting pissed off enough that nobody could lift this rug up, he used his flame breath and managed to burn through the rug, which ended up revealing a very small hole. One of them dropped a torch into the hole, and as soon as it kind of came under the lip, it slammed into the floor with extremely accelerated speed. And upon further inspection, Tiberius was able to figure out that it was actually some kind of accelerated momentum trap, and kind of the idea to it was somebody would step on the rug, they'd fall through, and it would have a chance of shattering their ankles or their knees or what have you, at least dealing some form of pain or damage. Having dealt with that, they all stepped around it. Table, kind of great hall area, looked very, very normal. It looked like it hadn't been used in a while. But Shanna noticed that there was a curtain along the back wall, or a tapestry to Mysteria that looked it looked like it did belong there, but it also looked like the kind of place that she imagined people would hide stuff. So she opened it, she kind of moved it to the side and revealed that there was a secret door here. And by the way, guys, this program lets you do fog of war, so they could not see this S here for the secret door. All they could see was that there was a tapestry on the wall. They came in here, they found a giant pile of random large objects. And here's one of those things where kind of you didn't plan for it, but your party found a way to take advantage of something. Immediately, Shannon was like, "Whoa, I wonder how much this is worth." And I was like, Rourke estimates that it's probably about 80 gold's worth of like ornate rugs and artwork and stuff, but it would definitely be kind of a pain to haul out." And without hesitation, Shannon goes, "Well, we've got all the merchants waiting outside. As soon as this place is clear, they'll help us drag it all out." Crap, yes they will. They love gold as much as you guys do. So the group was able to squeeze some extra gold out of here that I hadn't planned for, which was kind of funny and made me laugh a little bit. Inside this chest, they found more gold and a magical item that Shanna identified as a money belt. The way that works is you slide currency into this little metal kind of pouch on the front. It disappears, but whenever you need money, you tell it how much you need, and it actually allows you to change. It doesn't let you change the value. So 1 gold will be 1 gold no matter what, but you can change that 1 gold into silver or copper and the respective amounts that it would be. So it does allow you to make change and do stuff like that. It was very much an item created for merchants and people that are carrying around some money, and you could tell, and very quickly the party kind of came to the assumption that someone should carry that and kind of be the bank for at least the party's earnings, not necessarily their personal gold. So with that, they went back outside. They grabbed some of the merchants. They collected this stuff. They sold the odds and ends that they had collected in here, and then at the end of the session, that brought them here to Ravenfall. They still haven't, like, they're just coming in on the bridge, and then I went ahead and ended the session there. And the way that we did it is they are actually they at the end of the first session they hit level 2. So everybody went ahead and leveled up. A couple of characters got bonus XP for kind of interesting things that they did that went above and beyond kind of the Call of Duty. And that's where we left off. So that was the end of our first session. Everyone seemed really happy. I'm very happy with how it went. Lots of cool and exciting things to come, guys. If any of this is stuff that excited you, or if you are interested in kind of sticking around and seeing plot ideas, kind of things that I've come up with, like I said, I can't reveal too much in one of these videos ahead of time, just on the off chance that one of my players ends up finding it. But as things develop, I will be explaining all this kind of in these summary videos. So, glad you guys could make it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put it in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.